Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, and government leaders. We meet each one to one. I'm pleased to welcome my CUNY TV colleague, Ronnie Eldridge, to the program today. A New York native and ever the New Yorker, she has an insider's knowledge of New York political life that's matched by few others. Starting with her work for Mayor John Lindsay in the early 1970s, she's been a visible and forceful figure in city and state governments. She's been a tireless advocate for women, especially those who are too frightened and bruised to have voices of their own. And she knows practically everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
So have you ever seen a mess like the one in Albany?
No. I can't remember ever. No, I haven't. And it's especially bad when it's coupled with New York and everything, but Albany is really terrible. Do you think because it's so far away that we never noticed it that much?
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
And then I think there are some just, certain scandals that have bubbled up that makes us wonder if, a lot of them are up to things they shouldn't be up to.
Well, the Spitzer thing was so shocking.
Right.
I mean, it was the least, you would never expect that to have happened.
Right.
So then we elevated Patterson, so we have an unelected governor. Then you have the controller, and now you have a lieutenant governor. So it's really been crazy.
Is anything going well in Albany, in your view?
I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the inside stories of everything, and I keep thinking I'm a citizen, and I'm a fairly sophisticated citizen with a little bit of an edge, I think, on average people as far as understanding politics.
Right.
But I don't understand this at all, and I can't account for how it happens and how it's let to go on for so long. I don't think it's anything new. I mean, we knew about Joe Bruno for years,
mm-hmm.
didn't we? So I don't really understand. I mean, the Democrats have fought forever to get a majority in the state Senate recently. And then they got the majority, then
now
they
they're
lost
imploding.
it. Now they're imploding. It's a very difficult situation.
We're on the precipice of possibly having 3 governors in 3 years. Is that a record?
I don't know. Is it? I think,
I don't
imagine
know.
it is.
Sounds like it
I
is.
can't remember, and I go back to Avril Harriman at least.
Okay.
So that's a long time.
Okay. Spitzer's leave-taking was at least, it was shocking, but it was at least clean. He had the announcement on a Monday, and he was gone by Wednesday. Why is Patterson's leave-taking so long and drawn out?
Well, I don't think he's done any. He admitted early on that he did some things that were more in the Spitzer League, right?
Right.
I mean, that they took care of the first day.
Right.
Which itself was a little shocking. I mean, you don't really have governors going on the air telling us about their extramarital affairs.
And their
we
drug
don't need
use
to know that, and the drug use and all. I mean, that started him, I think.
But now we're on to even more serious.
Because he's
stuff.
holding on. He doesn't. I don't know if he understands that he's not been a good governor. He claims that he's responsible for Rockefeller, the drug laws, changing the drug laws. People worked on that for 100 years. That were for a long time.
Right.
I'm exaggerating. But he thinks that's an accomplishment. So I don't know if he fully realizes. I don't think he's ever worked very hard in his life.
Really?
He's a very nice, sociable guy. He was never a leader as far as I was concerned on the West Side with West Side politics, of which I used to be very involved in. And in the state Senate, he was never a leader.
Do you think he got a free pass for most of his life?
I think he did. I think I was shocked when he was named the minority leader, when they were just on the precipice of campaigning and gaining their majority in the state Senate. He comes up as the minority leader. And then for Spitzer really to have appointed to say, I want him to run with me for lieutenant governor, was not helpful because he has no administrative experience. He has no great gravitas, I think. And that was a bad appointment.
And yet for about 2 weeks, everybody was thrilled, because, to have Spitzer gone and to have this easygoing, fun guy who could tell good jokes, people seemed happy, and then it's quickly started to go downhill.
Well, I'm not sure they were so happy, were they?
They acted like they were.
Well, they may have acted like they were. But I don't know. The whole state is so peculiarly dysfunctional. You've got a speaker who has such power, and when you think about it, he's been elected year after year from a district on the Lower East Side, and it's rumored that he lives on Long Island, so I don't know if he still lives on the Lower East Side. And we never see him. We don't know who he is, Shelley Silver, except he's got the upper hand for everything in the state.
You don't ever see him.
No. And
part of Spitzer's problem was that he had made so many enemies that there was no reservoir of goodwill left for him. Is there any left for Patterson?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's a very interesting question, and it involves race, which I think everybody's loath to discuss.
And they want to sort of tiptoe around that.
Yeah, they're very careful. I was uncomfortable when Sharpton called a meeting of black leaders to discuss what they thought should happen to Patterson. I don't think it's their role to decide what happens to Patterson. It's everybody's role. You know, it's a voter's role. I think people are loath to say get out because he is African American, and we're all interested in promoting equality in all of the kinds of offices. And I think too, he's also a disappointment.
Yeah.
And it's just very difficult.
What did Sharpton's group decide finally? Did they were
They were going to support him, and then the second meeting was they were uncertain. So I don't, they were reserving judgment.
Right. The aqueduct deal seems to.
And Flake has now the Reverend Flake is now out of it.
Yeah. But that really
that was terrible.
Stank.
Yeah, it was. And it was even if there's nothing that goes on, the way David does these things makes it look as if there's something going on. So they approve the aqueduct, whatever the name of that corporation is. They give that. He pulls it out. Was not recommended. And then a couple of days later, he goes to see Flake.
Right. Are you going to support me? Yeah.
Right. And before, Flake had sort of indicated that he was going to support or he was interested in Cuomo's. So it looks bad. I mean, the same thing was last week. I was shocked after last week, because there were a lot of things going on Thursday and Wednesday and all these things, that he spent 2 hours for lunch at the Four Seasons. Now, I mean, would you
when
do
he
that?
should have been working.
Yeah, or he should have at least been out of sight, or he should have been in a meeting. But he goes to the Four Seasons.
Right.
So it's just a lack of judgment also.
Yeah, he seems clueless.
It's very sad.
Let's go back to,
David, his father, is terrific. I mean, I remember when he ran for lieutenant governor with Arthur Goldberg, and that was considered a great asset, I thought, on the ticket.
Right. Let's go back to, it's hard to say what the most damaging allegation against Patterson has been so far, but one was certainly, the first big one was that he interceded and asked other people in the state government to intercede on behalf of his aide to stop the aide's girlfriend from pressing domestic violence charges. How bad was that? It's
another thing that is not smart. It was really, you're not supposed to interfere with something in the courts.
Right.
And it was too bad. It was very poor judgment.
And it makes you think, and that along with the people who are still supporting Hiram Montserrat, who was also involved and convicted of a domestic violence incident. It makes you wonder how many of these incidents have been among politicians, have been suppressed, hidden, with the help of their friends.
Well, I'm sure, for instance, the baseball tickets. Do we know that Giuliani paid for every ticket that he had? He lived at the Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And I remember, although I do remember when I worked for Lindsay, which was many years ago, somebody, and the Knicks were in the playoffs, somebody asked me if I wanted tickets to the Knicks. And I decided to take the kids, and it cost me a fortune. So we were careful then. We did pay for tickets. And you should pay for you should be extra sensitive. You should know that the press is there looking for you and doing stuff. And so you should just be very careful, especially when interfering with a witness, with the state police, the involvement of the state police. That's still an issue from Spitzer, with the state police, with the Spitzer administration going to the state police to do some investigations of people. So it just didn't make any sense. It's just, some of these cases, I think, are done unconsciously because some people think when you're elected to office, that's the kind of thing you're supposed to do. It's very simple. Because politics has never, I think a lot of people go into politics, because it's a business or it's their profession. That's what they're going to do all their lives, and they take full advantage of it. I was thinking today, I don't think they teach civics anymore in school. And I remember...
Or ethics.
Ethics.
Certainly.
But civics, my 7th grade civics teacher at Joan of Arc Junior High School was so fabulous and really encouraged our interest in public affairs. And aside from being born on Franklin Roosevelt's birthday, I credit him with my interest
And what was his name?
in government. His name was Herbert Eben.
Okay.
And he was spectacular. When I got into the city council, he came my first day in council. But we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then when we have all this scandal and all this publicity and all this obvious incompetence, people aren't going to aspire to do that. And I think it's part of the ethics of morality. I mean, I don't know. I always figured you went into government to change change something. I used to think you could change the world, but I think that's more difficult.
But I think a lot of people go into government because they want to be in control. They want to have power.
And they think it's exciting. Certainly the people who are in business, successful in business, think it's the next step, like Bloomberg.
Right.
What is he going to do? He made billions of dollars. He started this company on his own.
And if I can run that, I can run the city.
Right. And that didn't quite, I think, fulfill the quest for power. So he ran for mayor.
But if you go from things like the Yankees tickets, or you look at Charlie Rangel with the apartments and the all of those freebies, I think it makes people think that this is what they do. So many of our politicians at all level are in there for the goodies and are selling influence and getting Bruno, enriching themselves, by selling influence, and whether this is much bigger than we know.
Well, and especially now with the internet and cable television constantly going on with news all the time. But that's a problem. It's a problem, I think, that comes down to voters. I mean, it's our knowledge or interest in what's going on. So if you studied civics and you were really interested in government, local or not,
right,
you would pay more attention. We get people elected with so few votes and such a low percentage of the eligible voters, and then we don't pay attention. The other thing when we're talking about why people are in politics or run for office is it's a family business. Look at how many people have sons and daughters and cousins and sisters and brothers.
Right.
Which is terrible. It's not, you don't inherit this. This is something you're supposed to earn.
Unless you're Kennedy.
Unless you're a Kennedy. True.
Then it's yours by birthright.
Right.
We're going to take a short break. I'll be back with more with Ronnie Eldridge after the following messages.
The images from Haiti are heartbreaking. Homes, hospitals, and schools are destroyed. Families searching for loved ones, parents trying to feed their children. But we can all do something. We can help the American Red Cross as it delivers the food, water, and medicine that can save lives. Donate $10 by texting Haiti to 90999. Visit redcross.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS. Thanks for your help.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with former City Councilwoman Ronnie Eldridge, the host of Eldridge & Company right here on CUNY TV. We were talking about Charlie Rangel. He finally, after all these years, he finally gets this great and powerful position as chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and then he has to give it up for really an accumulation of what appear to be ethical lapses.
Well, it's more of the same. I mean, it's just why he's Charlie Rangel and he's treated like a king, and so he is. It's sad, I think. And it raised another question, too, of whether the seniority system works against us or for us, because I don't know if you should be in office for as many years
How
as
long
he's
has
been.
He been in? 30 years or something?
Something like that,
yeah.
A very long time. I think after a while, it softens the edges and you lose the real ability, although he's still been a fighter in the Congress. But
it's so interesting to me that he was able to get that office
Right.
because Adam Clayton Powell had been
there
messing
for years,
up,
right.
And became vulnerable.
Right.
And I had been, thinking, even back, starting with the whole thing about the for rent subsidized apartments, that, if he keeps this up, he's going to become vulnerable, and some young person's going to.
Oh, he's going to have a primary if he runs again, and I would not be surprised if he didn't run. But if he runs again, he's definitely going to have a primary fight up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's time because what we've seen, the elders, everybody talks about the elders from Harlem, it's time for the younger people to have a chance. It's too bad that the first young person to have that chance is David Patterson, who's screwed it up. But
right.
I mean, it's just time. I don't think we should have the same people around all the time.
So
not that the term limits work. Well, I don't know if the term limits hasn't worked better than people thought.
The state's in a lot of debt, and Richard Ravitch apparently has come up with a proposal for a sort of financial control board-ish kind of situation for the state, like the city had back in the 70s. What do you think about
I don't really know, but I'll tell you what I think about it.
Okay.
I've been so uncomfortable with the way they've been announcing that Richard Ravitch is going to come up with this plan, and that yesterday, I think, or the day before, a couple of days before he presents his plan, the governor is already saying, well, maybe that's not the way to go. I mean, it's interesting. I view Ravitch as being more of a staff position than having been elected lieutenant governor.
Right.
And he's there to help Patterson. So it would seem to me if he comes up with a plan, the first person you want to convince of the value of the plan would be the governor.
Right.
Instead, it's just another sign of the lack of respect for Patterson. And we are in terrible trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, the budget was what, like $134 billion, and we're $9 billion unmatched,
right,
and more in the future. So it's time that we really do something. And it's difficult to get a legislature to agree because nobody wants to cut their favorite cuts.
I know that Patterson keeps saying, I'm not going anywhere until the end of the year. What are you a betting woman?
I think he is going to go home.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah. And then the question is, does Ravitch appoint a lieutenant governor? Because the lieutenant governor is supposed to preside over the Senate.
Right.
And I'm so confused now with Montserrat running and they're missing a Democrat as to whether it's even in the Senate. Is there a Democratic majority? I don't think so.
Right.
So then the lieutenant governor who's presiding would have the deciding vote. It's such a mess. I can't wait for November. But, it all goes back to the lack of interest in government of too many people.
Is that it?
I really believe that. And so higher quality people, I don't mean higher quality, but people who are the advocates for all the different groups, they're the people who should be running for office. I mean, they go with a passion.
So why don't they?
Because look at the mess it is. I don't know why. And because then it's hard to oppose an incumbent, because some people, look at Montserrat. People are saying, well, he's going to win this election because he's got such a machine. I don't think he's going to win this election. I can't believe that the people there will vote for him. But it becomes a right for these elected officials, and it's very hard to get them off the pedestal. I think Obama did it.
Yeah. You talk about these elected officials who've been around forever. Do you think they ought to get psychological tests after their first year in office and every year thereafter to check whether they have lost hold on reality and whether they have a functioning moral compass?
Or whether they ever had any sense of reality. I am shocked by the mediocrity of elected officials generally. I mean, there's some wonderful ones. I don't mean to say that. But overall, I don't think some of them understand what they're doing. I don't think they understand the complexity of a lot of these laws that are made and bills that are brought up. I just don't. I think we have such a mess with the property taxes because they don't understand it. There are things that should be changed in the state, and yet people don't want to have a constitutional convention because they're afraid of what other issues will be brought up. So it's a stalemate, and
What, if anything, could be done to get better people running for public office?
More people should be involved. I think the campaign finance system in New York is quite generous, so you do have an opportunity, except if the person opts out,
right?
As the current mayor did. But I think you have to be sensible in who's running. I think Bill Thompson was a very weak candidate, and if somebody stronger had run, they could have beaten Bloomberg. But we don't have the ability. We didn't have anybody willing to do that.
Yeah.
it goes back to whether you have a civic duty or not. Weren't you brought up to believe that there was something like the common good?
I think I vaguely remember that. Yes, yes.
But
they've also lost sight of that in Washington. It's not just. You look at Albany and what a mess. I mean, look at Washington. It all seems to be about, okay, we have got, the Democrats got this. We got this historic election of this guy, and the Republicans say, let's do everything we can to make sure that nothing he does is successful, and we take him down so that we can get back into power. I mean, that seems to be what it's all about.
It's terrible. I don't remember it being this way in Washington either.
Yeah.
I mean, the bitterness and the lack of any kind of... I don't understand how they say the polls show it's going to be a big Republican election. I don't understand that either. I've always hated polls because everybody seems to take the excitement out, and they're wrong sometimes. Why do they think the Republicans being so negative, why do they think that's what the American people want? I don't think they do they?
I don't know. I guess there are a lot of them. There are a lot of Republicans, and there are a lot of negative thinking Americans, unfortunately.
Right. But there are a lot of independents. I mean, the Republican Party is being so polarized. That's very interesting what's happening there. Mm-hmm. I think part of the stuff with Obama has to have something to do with race.
Yeah.
Implicitly. I think he's been terrific. I don't think that he's failed in his first year at all.
I don't either.
I don't understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the standards that have been applied to him. Mm-hmm. And so let's hope that he's able to pass the health bill. And I think he's going to be a great president. I certainly hope so.
What do you think of, Ed Koch is... The irrepressible Ed Koch, has proposed an initiative to get the bums out of state government, I guess by, having some high-powered people use their pressure to do so. What do you think of what he's talking about? Or do we quite really know what he's talking about?
I don't really know what he's talking about. It's a little reminiscent. I think he tried to do that a couple of years ago also. I remember he was... he was in a group that was trying to get somebody else to run against Shelley Silver. So I think this is not a new idea. It's very hard in some of these districts because we can make decisions what we think should come out of some of these districts. And it's, again, who's going to vote? And I think it's fine to go and encourage good candidates to run and say you're going to support them. But then you have to really get the vote out. Mm-hmm. And how are you going to do that? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the things, about getting some of the more committed and more competent people to run is governing is hard. Being an activist, is relatively easy compared to, because I remember, one of the issues I've written about is the problem of not just homelessness, but affordable housing in New York City. And you have, these people who have been, criticizing the government so vehemently for years of, why are all these people sleeping in Port Authority? But then when some of those people do actually get an appointment to some job on, homelessness or the housing at City Hall, then they realize how really hard it is to do what they were calling for.
But, some of the advocates have, most of them, I think, have very good ideas.
Okay.
And they're very necessary because they're on the outside and they're posing a position and you and the inside are supposed to respond.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem is that not enough people understand the different roles. And so sometimes the people outside are very intolerant of the people inside. Sometimes the people inside don't listen to the people on the outside. There's a whole rhythm to government. And there should be a rhythm to good government. It's just that it's stalled someplace. There's a blockage.
Right.
I loved the system in Illinois, where they had a primary for lieutenant governor. They do it separately. And then the guy who was elected then had to resign because he was in all kinds of trouble. He owed money. He was this. He had girlfriends and everything else. So he resigned. And so they've advertised, and people are submitting their own requests for candidacy. So they're getting all kinds of people who are saying, yeah, I'd like to be lieutenant governor, because then it's appointed by the Democratic Party. It's a good system. I think we should open up some of these elections.
So do you miss being on the inside of government?
No. I was very disappointed in my colleagues, and I was disappointed in the way the council ran. I certainly was disappointed in the mayor I had to work with, which was Giuliani. That was it was just unpleasant and terrible. It's a very exciting job. It's a wonderful job, and people should do it, but I don't miss it. So that's, I would, I could, I don't miss it.
Okay, having more fun.
No, I don't even know if it's fun. It's just that it got tedious, and now I read the papers. I don't understand a lot that's going on.
Yeah.
I think most people don't understand, and if I have a little leg up because I have a deeper understanding of how it works, then a lot of people don't understand what's going on. We don't really know who's there. You get mailings from your local candidate. The coverage of city government is terrible.
Yeah.
The state government is even worse because it's further away, so you don't even see it.
Yeah.
And I think the congressional delegation is lacking.
Yeah. So it's really a sad situation.
I mean, this is New York State.
From top to bottom.
Exactly.
From local to state
city,
to federal.
Yeah, it's terrible. And we
Ronnie,
think
we're
we're
out
the
of
leaders.
time.
Okay.
But, we could do a three-parter on this because there's so much to say, but I'm sure there are going to be a lot of developments, and we can.
I hope we haven't discouraged people. They should get
I hope
in.
not. I want to thank Ronnie Eldridge for joining me. You can see her here on Eldridge & Company Wednesdays at 9 a.m., 4 p.m., and 9 p.m., and again on Thursdays at 3 a.m., Saturday at 7:30, and Sunday morning at 11. I hope you got all those times. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.